Let's go. Yo. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. And that's facts.
Well, hello, welcome in, Monsters of the Madhouse, Chicago Sports Podcast, and thanks for watching tonight, everyone, as we kick off the weekend here talking about the Bears. There's so much going on here the past couple of days, and we can't thank you enough. I see you guys already popping up here in the chat room. Plank already, Bear down. Montana shy. Let's go. Yeah, man, let's go, because we got some news to talk about here with the Bears. And before we get into that, too, you guys can like and subscribe our YouTube page, our YouTube channel. Check out some of our past shows. We have shows coming on here every single day. Coffee with Tracks. I know he's going to have another one coming up here. And everything, the latest going on with the Chicago Bears, we got it right here for you on the Monsters of the Madhouse Chicago Sports Podcast. As we're talking about a new coaching hire, we're talking about Bill Johnson. Bill Johnson joining the Bears coaching staff. He's going to be on the defensive side of the ball. I thought when he first started hearing some of the names that he was either going to be the defensive line coach or something else, but it looks like they don't have a position for him just yet. So he is going to be a part of the Bears coaching staff on defense. And he's got a heck of a track record, too. I mean, this is an old school coach. You know what's funny? You start thinking about some of the coaches and some of the younger coaches. A lot of the coaching right now, coaching cycles, a lot of the coaches are in the age range of like 30 to 40, somewhere around there for the most part, if not younger, maybe just a little bit older. But this dude's been around for like 30 years. He's had a heck of a career, too. And a career, too, that it's kind of unusual because he started off in the college ranks. Then he goes into the NFL. He wins a championship, gets a Super Bowl with the Saints. He spent many years with the Saints. Then he goes back to college to LSU, where he wins a national championship, goes to the XFL, and then to the Birmingham Stallions after that, the UFL. So I feel like he's gone all over the place. I was like, looking at that track record, and I can't remember a time of a coach going through that many stops before. But it's so cool. Funny fact, too, by the way, I've actually been to a Birmingham Stallions football game before. My company's based down there. So I was down there for a couple of days, and they were playing, and I ended up going. And it's a much different style of football. So I was probably there. They actually won the championship last year. They were the champions last year at Birmingham Stallions. So he's got multiple championships with them all over the place, in college, in the NFL, and in the UFL. And here he is. Now he is coming back to the NFL after being with the Birmingham Stallions last year, coming in to be part of the Bears right now. And we'll find out where that is soon. But it's pretty crazy to see who he's coached. And yeah, Plank says this dude gets around. Thank you guys in the chat tonight, too. But it's crazy to see some of the players, because when you're around in the NFL for as long as this guy has been, you know, he's coached a lot of studs. And there's a couple that stand out to me when you look at his track record. So the first one that comes to mind is Cam Jordan, who we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. So that was with the Saints and had a heck of a year, especially in 2015. That's when he was kind of coming into his own in the league for a couple of years already. But that was a year he had 10 sacks and 20 quarterback hits. And then after that, a guy named Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald had some dominant years, 2017, 2018, back-to-back years, defensive MVP, the defensive player of the year. And he had 11 sacks and 20 and a half sacks 2018. That was the year, man. He was a stud. I remember that year, too. He was all over the field. Remember that year, too. That was the year when the Bears played the Rams, like later on in the year. It was closer to my birthday. And man, that dude was so good that year. So he's been around some great players. He's coached some great players. And I'm very excited to see what he can do. I'm very excited to see when you get some of these old school coaches come in that have been around a long time, and you pair him up with a guy like Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, who is our brand new head coach and is 37 years old, 38 years old. And it reminds me of, what kind of reminds me of too, is when Sean McVay took over the Rams. Remember Wade Phillips, who, by the way, was a defensive coordinator for the Rams when Bill Johnson was the defensive line coach for the Rams. Wade Phillips was the coach, and it kind of reminds me of that just a little bit. So that's what we're getting here. And I can't wait to see what he does and what we get going here when we get our full coaching staff together, when every coach has a position, because I feel like we're getting there and we should be there here very, very soon. You guys can like and subscribe our YouTube channel, our YouTube page. Thank you guys for watching tonight. We have a lot of shows that you guys can check out, and you get those notifications that pop up on your phone. And I can't wait this weekend. This weekend, tomorrow, I plan on doing nothing, hanging out, getting caught up on shows because we have so many great hosts that are on this channel. And you guys can certainly check that out for yourself, too. So with Bill Johnson being part of the coaching staff now, we could start getting into what we want to do here in the offseason, because I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason. We have a lot of cap room. As a matter of fact, we have around $69 million in cap space right now. And that's going to change too. I know the cap is going up. I don't think that has happened yet. I know there's been talk about that, but it's around $69 million for the Bears, which I believe is a top 5. It's in the top of the league right now as far as cap space goes. But I think it could get above $75 to $80 million once that goes up. And that's going to be great. As we try to put this team together with a brand new coaching staff, here's what I'm going to say. And I'm looking over the free agent list. We're going to go over the draft. And by the way, we did a draft show last week. My buddy Dano and I, we were on the show last Friday. We did a mock draft. You guys can check that out and kind of what we were going for that. There's going to be a lot of mock drafts coming in and out too, especially when more and more players start declaring themselves. We'll go over some more. Guys in the chats right now, I see Dave in there. What's up, Beard Owl, man? Osama Ben Johnson. What's going on, man? Good to see you in here. Thank you guys so much for watching the show tonight. When I look over this free agent class, and we're going to go over a couple of guys, I got to say I'm a little underwhelmed right now. There are free agents in this class. I think it's just okay. Now, that can change. That could certainly change because there's going to be cuts. Teams are going to be cutting players. Teams are going to try to get down below their salary cap limit or what their salary cap limits are. So there's going to be more players on the board, especially as June 1st comes around. That's going to be the big day too for the salary cap. But as looking at the current free agency right now, the first, and you guys can comment in the chat too. Let me know what you think. Where would you start in free agency? Are there certain areas where you want to come? But I start with the offensive line. And I think that's where you got to start. I look at the tackles and I look at the guards. Now, the big name that we keep hearing about is Trey Smith, Kansas City, the Chiefs, who you guys can watch here. He's been an outstanding guard for them for his start of his career. There's a lot of rumors out there whether he is going to stay in Kansas City, whether he is going to hit the market. I don't know. Here's a problem with Kansas City, and this is actually a very good problem to have. They got a lot of young players they got to pay. When you draft as well as they do, they're in a very good situation. As here, they're trying to three-peat here for the Super Bowl, but they have a lot of players they got to play. They got some money on the books for some big-time names on that team, so they can't pay everybody. It's kind of like what the Bengals are going through right now, where they're trying to figure out who they want to pay, who they want to keep on. Well, that's what the Chiefs are doing right now. So we just don't know if he's going to be able to stay or not, if they're going to sign him, or if they're going to let him hit the open market, because they do draft very well. And everything that I keep reading and all the research that I've been doing about this year's draft is this is going to be a very good year for offensive linemen. So Trey Smith is absolutely number one on my board. A couple other guards to keep in mind. Zach Martin of Dallas, the veteran that's been around for a long time. Looks like he's going to hit the open market. Brandon Sheriff of Jacksonville. I've always been a fan of his. It's a scrappy player. Another guy to keep in mind. Remember when we had James Daniels on our team 3 or 4 years? It was 4 years ago. And then he went to the Steelers. He actually played very well with the Steelers. And I've been a fan of his. I actually think he got better when he went there. Now, he was hurt this year. He got hurt. I think it was like after the 4th or 5th game. He did go down with an injury. So I don't know what that possibility would be like, but I think he could be, for the right price, he would be something that maybe you would consider bringing back. But he was certainly on my list. Not the top of the list. Trey Smith's on the top of my list. But if I had to put a top 5 together, especially looking at this class right now, he might be included in that. So it's a name to watch out for. Even for the tackles. Now, the name that's curious or interesting for me is Cam Robinson of the Vikings. If you remember Cam Robinson of last year, guys, Cam Robinson was traded. And he was traded from the Jaguars in that offseason deal because their tackle, Sheriff, went down. Their all-star tackle went down with an injury. So Cam Robinson, they made the trade for him, played well. And I was reading, I saw this earlier today. It was from heavy.com, and they were talking about the Minnesota Vikings. They got a lot of free agents too, by the way. They got a lot of players. I think they got like 20 or more free agents this year. But they were talking about Christian Darsow. That's why I said his name wrong. Darsow, their all-star tackle. It might be a possibility that he is not back in time for the start of the season. And if that's the case, Cam Robinson would be somebody that would be on the radar to take a look at. As we welcome in Chris right now, man. What's going on, Chris?
Nothing much, man. Just Getting through the day as it goes by. How's everything going with you guys?
We're good, man. We're good. It's good to see you again. We're talking about Bears. We're talking about free agency right now. And Chris, I'm kind of going over the free agency of this year, the 2025 so far free agents. And I kind of started off by saying I'm kind of underwhelmed by this year's free agents. I know, and there's going to be more to come because teams are going to release players and some salary cap issues. Teams are going to go through some salary cap and try to figure what they want it to be. But I'm going some of the offensive line right now. We're working on the offensive tackles. And obviously, Cam Robinson's a big name that stands out to me. But I said there's a very good possibility that I was reading earlier today from heavy.com about the Vikings. There's a possibility that they might bring him back if they don't get their tackle back. But if I feel like if Cam Robinson hits the market now, I know we're going to be working with Darnell Wright, and he's going to be staying right there where he is. And Braxton Jones is coming back from injury, but I feel like he's going to have some competition there. And if you were to go into that realm of tackles, that would be the first name that I would look at.
Either that or I would try to find some type of addition to the defensive line as far as like the other edge, or just see if you can get more get some help on side as far as the defensive tackles are concerned. I think just the only holes I've seen in this roster is more from the skills position. It's like not skills position. It's in the trenches. So the they've loaded up on the skills positions the previous off season. So right now it just seems like the trenches is where we have the issues at. Defensive line. We don't have enough guys to get up the quarterback consistently. And offensive line, we're not at that level we need to be to protect the quarterback to be successful. So it's just the basic things. You got to protect your guy and you got to hit the other guy. So we just need to be better in those areas.
And let's talk about that here for a second as I look over the 2025 free agent class. So I was going over the tackles, some of the guards, and I agree with you on that too, because I was working my way to the edge rushers. I was working my way to some of the interior defensive linemen that we can see on the open market this year, because I think it's quite obvious. We've been talking a lot about this here the last couple shows that I've had on here, whether you've been on it or Dano's been on it, Chris, that our trenches are right up there in front, and that's what we really need to improve on. And you can kind of get that feeling too when you hear the coaches talk. When I look at the edge rushers this year, man, there's a lot of veterans that are going to be out there. The big one's Khalil Mack. We've talked about that. Khalil Mack is entering is a free agent. DeMarcus Lawrence from Dallas, another veteran. Hassan Reddick, Chase Young, Matt Judon, Josh Sweat is somebody that I would keep a close eye on. Marcus Davenport. So here's my overall as far as that goes, and I'd love to get your guys' opinions, and we'll get your opinion on this too, Chris. I think we got some good names in there. I think Khalil Mack is still playing at a high level. Outside of that, none of those names do much for me.
There's one name that kind of sticks out, just only because of the simple fact that when it came to their time in Washington, they complemented each other well, and that's actually Chase Young. Chase Young, part of that when what was that Washington defensive line, they were kind of a yin and yang as far as like when on certain plays where just the way they would rush and how each side benefited from that. It helped when it comes to when Washington had them on the team, their pass rush was the main thing you had to worry about on that defense, because you had a Montez Sweat and you had a Chase Young, both guys, freakish athletes. And, they could rush with power, they could rush with speed, and you had to be worried on both edges. So they complement each other well.
I agree with that. It's going to be interesting how much you want to pay too for an edge rusher. Because think about that. We signed Montez Sweat last year to that big contract, over $100 million. So and we got the cap room. I just said we got $69 million in cap space, or roughly around $69 million in cap space, with that ability or that possibility that looks like it could go up over the next couple of weeks. So that could be near 80. By the time we start free agency, this could be near $80 million. And we're going to get to a couple players that you don't want to see on this team here in just a minute, because that could even free up a little bit more room. But it's like, and I think Chase Young's the type of guy too, Chris, that you could bring in here probably for a 1 or a shorter year deal where you don't have to spend as much money. And you're right to what you said. He could be right back there with Montez Sweat, those two guys playing together for all those years. And also playing in New Orleans last year, you'll have that familiarity with Dennis Allen.
Correct. So he has some familiarity with the system, and then at the same time, he has a level of continuity with Montez Sweat. When you look at just the fact that he played with they both played with them on the same team, I believe for a majority of their careers. Is when you think about that, and then he also has some familiarity with Dennis Allen, and he's a young talent. And on top of that, because of the fact that he has this level of being unproven, um, you don't really have to break the bank to get him. So you can actually still be adding more pieces as you go. You can even add like another defensive tackle and not break the bank to where you're a little more you have a little bit more pressure on who you're going to get for the rush or for the offensive line.
There's another name on here too that I left out, but Dante Fowler of the Washington Commanders actually had a very good year last year. Now he went to a system that he's played in. He was very familiar with Quinn in his defense. Now I can't imagine. I think there would be a good possibility him to go back to where he feels comfortable with. But I feel like he had a resurgence year last year. Another guy that I think to kind of like the Chase Young that you don't have to overpay for, that you can go out and find the right deal for. Now, as far as like a guy like Khalil Mack, I think Khalil Mack's going to be looking for a bigger deal. I think Khalil Mack, which I think I would love to have that reunion with our team. I think he'd be a good fit for Dennis Allen's defense. I just don't know if I could see them paying all that money for him. Or do you go into the draft? Because in this year's draft, and a lot of the stuff that I was reading this year down in Mobile, Alabama, about some of the players and some of the depth and what the depth looks like this year. I was reading offensive linemen, I was reading running backs, I was reading tight ends, and I was reading defensive line. So, do you go into this draft? Do you keep that money knowing that you're paying Montez Sweat that amount of money, Chris, and take a look into the draft and kind of focus some of those needs somewhere else? That's going to be the question that they're going to have to answer.
I mean, the way their roster is set up right now, that they're top five in cap space, and you're getting you got your defensive coordinator, and he's one of those guys that if he has some people on the edge, he will attack, and he will try to he'll be aggressive with his defensive play calling. I think that you can go and attack this multiple ways. You can actually pull off getting a Khalil Mack, but then at the same time you still go younger in the draft, because if I'm not mistaken, Khalil Mack is in his, I believe, 15th or 16th year. I could be missing it by a year or two. So you're not getting the Khalil Mack that you traded for the first time around when you got him from the Raiders. So, you got to also think of that possible decline arriving sooner. So now you got to get that next guy ready. And what other teacher would you want than a Khalil Mack that's basically almost done it all in the NFL?
Well, let me bring up another name for you. And you guys, thank you for commenting in the chat room tonight. Thank you guys for watching Monsters of the Madhouse. You guys could like and subscribe our YouTube page, our YouTube channel. Cam Jordan's going to be another interesting name. So Cam Jordan, who has been with the Saints his entire career, which I love that. I love the fact that you still hear about players that have played for the same team, which you don't get that much anymore in the NFL because of salary cap and teams constantly changing coaches all the time with different fits and schemes. But Cam Jordan's been there for the beginning since 2011. Now, there's a lot of rumors, depending what happens with New Orleans. I know they got a lot of salary cap problems. I don't know what's going to happen with them. It sounds like Kellen Moore could be their next head coach after the Super Bowl is over with the Eagles. So do they go in a rebuild direction? Do they keep some veterans and they try to go from there? I have no clue what they're going to do, but it looks like they're going to have to start thinking about some salary cap and who they're going to keep and who they're going to release. I have no idea, but Cam Jordan could be an interesting name because if they do release him, I know they could save some money. I think it's between $10 and $11 million on their salary cap if they release him. And he could either go to a team like the Bears, where he played under Dennis Allen. There's going to be a lot of teams that are probably going to want to bring in a veteran like him, but he could have that option. He could also have that Sean Payton option in Denver as well, who he knows very well from his time with the Saints.
I don't. It's hard for me to see that Denver option, not because of the fact that it's Cam Jordan, just the fact that their defense, the one is a different style.
And Joseph.
You're talking about a 4-3 from the Saints, which is a 3-4 which is Denver right now. And two, they're young on the edges, and them young guys get after it. When it comes to a guy like Cam Jordan, I'm not saying he's incapable of doing it, but you don't want to really change it up too much. And on top of that, when you look at the Saints are going to be dropping a lot of players this year. There's going to be a lot of cap casualties on that, especially on that defense. So I think there'll probably be a couple more pieces that we could possibly be like, hey, we may just take a swing at this guy, see if he still has this in the tank, because they have a lot of veteran players on that team right now. And when it comes to that, we have a lot of flexibility to where we can really just like kick the tires on some players and see, do they still got what it takes to make a great run.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out and how it plays out with some of these cap casualties for free agency this year. Monsters of the Madhouse Chicago Sports Podcast. Thank you guys for watching tonight. We're talking about the Bears. We're talking about Chris and I are talking about, and you guys can comment in the chat too. Let us know what you think about your vision for the Bears free agency, about who you would be looking for, and about who you would not keep. So, what's funny here, Chris? I was kind of looking over the roster, and listen, I have no idea what's going to happen here because this is a brand new coaching staff. You got Ben Johnson, you got Dennis, you got two brand new coaches on each side of the ball. I have no clue where they're going to be going here on what players fit their system, or we could speculate on which players you think fit their system. But at the end of the day, it's going to look a lot different. There's going to be a lot of players that are going to stay, and there's going to be some players that are going to be heading out, and players probably that are going to surprise us that might not be on this team. This year. But that's what happens also when you get new coaches coming in. And I was looking at, so we talk a lot about the defensive line. We were just talking about our upgrades there, Chris. We're talking about offensive line. That's how I started off the show and our free agency, about the different guards and tackles that could be available, and then the draft, because that's where I would really, really focus is that. Another position I would like for them to focus on is the tight end position. I don't think we have gotten the play of our tight ends like I would like to see. And I'm a big Cole Kmet fan. I thought at times last year he was good. I thought at times he dropped some key passes. I hope he comes back and he does awesome this year, because I like him a lot, and I'm cheering for a guy like him. But I was kind of looking over the tight ends, and is there any type of tight ends? Now, Gerald Everett would be the guy on my list that I would say, all right, out. I 1 year in, I think you can get him. You're not going to have to owe too much. But then again, the draft this year has tight ends that look like they could be very good. But I was kind of looking at the tight end free agency. I mean, does any of these guys get you excited? Mike Gesicki, I like a lot out of Cincinnati. He's a veteran. He had a really good year for them last year. I don't think they're going to be able to resign him. There's Zach Ertz, who also had a resurgence year for Washington. Tyler Conklin of the New York Jets. Austin Hooper of the Patriots. Any of those names, do they stand out to you? And is there anything anything that you would like to add?
I would personally cross off the Zach Ertz option because he's talking about already staying in Washington. Outside of that, there's nothing that really like perks the ears as far as like who's the guy as far as like tight end options in the NFL this year. Because they use Mike Gesicki a lot in a lot of key places. But they did use their tight ends pretty I'll say pretty efficiently this year. And then with the Bears, it's kind of hard to really give that elite, like that legit value to what Cole Kmet has contributed, because of the simple fact that you got a Rome Odunze, you got a DJ Moore, and then on top of that you got Keenan Allen, and then you got a running back like Swift. So the ball can only get into so many hands every game.
Oh, yeah, correct. And there's only so much that'll be going around. But I see Keith. What's up, Keith? I see Keith in the chat right now saying that Everett is cut 100%, and he's worried about both sides of the line. Which, yeah, me too, Keith. That's what we were talking about for the start of the show. But where I would go in the free agency, and that's where we kind of started breaking things down a little bit, is offensive, defensive line, and pass rushers. But I would like to see a little bit more from our tight end position. And this might be a position, though, too, Chris. This is where you have to really look in the draft. As we've got a lot of our draft picks for this year. I think that's a depth piece that you can find in the third, fourth, or fifth round. if you find it correctly. Because you're right, Zach Ertz, I do think he's going to go back to Washington. I don't think he's going to go anywhere else. And why would he, man? Like he had a great year last year. He felt comfortable in that offense. Played with Cliff in Arizona, and there's no reason for him not to stay there. And it's just somebody else on the other side for Komet. So I'm hoping to see them do that. And then the running back position. The running back position is an interesting one to me because I do think DeAndre Swift is going to be there. But it kind of sounded to me a couple of times when I heard Ben Johnson talk is he didn't necessarily say it, didn't necessarily say that he was looking and to change the running back room, but I feel like he's looking for more of that Jameer Gibbs type of runner on our team. And I wonder if they can find him in the draft or the free agency. And again, the free agents don't blow me away. We have Aaron Jones, Minnesota, Nick Chubb, Cleveland. I think those guys will be back. Najee Harris, Pittsburgh. Najee's a good running back. He's not a great running back. I feel like there's a lot of average running backs, but I feel like there's a lot of running backs and players in there that might get overpaid as well. So I think you got to be very careful with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes some running backs are projected higher because of the fact that they've been running behind probably one, if not the best offensive line in the league. So a running back is usually only as good as the blocking that he gets on those rundowns. So when it comes to the running backs this year, there may be a change. It wouldn't be surprising because they moved on from Swift before when Ben Johnson was in Detroit. But it's hard for me to see that just because of the fact that he has he has something in his offense where he could be a go-to guy in certain passing downs and stuff like that. Now, I will say I wouldn't be upset if Ben Johnson finds a more explosive option like a Jameer Gibbs, but it's pretty tough to find that in the NFL because you can't teach speed.
No, you can't teach speed, man. You either got it or you don't. You might be onto something about Swift there, Chris. I see Trap Akipa says Swift might not make it. And you know what's funny is I kind of thought about that over the last 2 weeks. I'm like, is Swift going to still be in? I still think he will be. But then again, remember it was 2 years ago with Ben Johnson in Detroit, and they completely changed the running back room, kind of to what you were saying. And they got rid of Swift. They got rid of Williams at that time, and they brought in David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs, two running backs that fit his system. And boy, did they ever fit his system because that was a hell of a 1-2 punch. So I'm almost thinking that he's going to be looking for that other 1-2 punch for the Bears too. Whether it's Swift or not, I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, I mean, when you looked at the playbook Ben Johnson had, he did have a thundering something I wouldn't say on the line of, but when you think about what they did, it was more like USC Reggie Bush, Landell White type of deal, where you have that one guy that's just he's gonna run tough between the tackles. He's gonna move the chains when it's like second and five or less and stuff like that. And it also tires out the defense. And then you got that elusive back that's very explosive, and you just give him one crease and he's gone. So with I think that's the only thing with Swift that uh we would love to have more of is like the explosiveness that when he hits a crease, it's goodbye. And from what I've seen, I could be wrong here. It's never really been that. It's been, you get a real good gain out of him, and he makes some pretty good runs. So it's the level of explosiveness, and that's the only difference between what Ben and DeAndre Swift here in Chicago.
So, Chris, as we start wrapping things up, and thank you guys so much. I see Cliff in the chat room. All right, what's going on, Cliff? Good to see you, man. Says Bears need a first and second down back. Swift will be a great passing down. And we also have the Honey Bear in here as well. So thank you guys very much for watching tonight. As we kind of talked about free agency and our dream in our people that we would like to see in place, I kind of started going over some of the players that I would like to see that they could cut. Is there anybody on this team, Chris? I said Gerald Everett, our tight end. Is there anybody on this team that you think should be a cut, or somebody that you could see being cut before free agency starts?
I can see I could see along the offensive line. That's where I think that the biggest change will be made. Of we heard Ben Johnson on more than one interview talking about, we got to make sure they keep him upright. That's honestly been our biggest Achilles heel this whole past season is keeping the quarterback feeling like safe in the pocket and not having him run for his life on passing downs. So like you know, I don't I think the biggest thing that will be that probably be for me is left tackle, or it'd be one of the guard spots. So I wouldn't be surprised if a Tevin Jenkins is not around next year. But I do think that there's that offensive line has to be like rebuilt, and you can use the right tackle as an anchor to build around, but something has to be done because that's the weakest part of the team, and it shows.
I agree with Trapper Keeper, and here he says Edmund, Everett, and Bates. Yeah, I think Bates could be a cut. I think that's definitely on the table. Edmund will be interesting too. I don't know if he'll be fitting the deal. Again, this is a brand new coaching staff. I know Ryan Poles has a lot to do with this because it's his team that he's assembled. But at the same time, when you got a whole new coaching staff coming in here right now, it's going to see who these guys that they want and who's going to fit in their schemes and who doesn't and what they think looks best for their team. So you just never know. So I have no clue what's going to happen going in. And that's why I'm excited for this offseason. And it's going to be fun to watch, Chris. And it's going to be fun to see what ends up happening. Thank you guys so much for watching tonight. Monsters of the Madhouse Chicago Sports Podcast. We talked about Bill Johnson. By the way, I got to make one quick comment here because I did see this come across earlier that one of the old Bears coaches, Eric Washington, looks like he landed a job with the New York Jets. He's going to be their D-line coach. So is it some of our coaches that have left? We saw Eberflus take a few of his guys with him down to Dallas, and it looks like that he is going to the Jets as the coaching carousel continues to go around in the NFL, as we're going to have a completely new coaching staff. So we have a lot of great sponsors we want to thank tonight too. Bridges Scoreboard, who's been there with us from the beginning. Thank you guys so much. TC's World of Wonders, that's where you can get your guys' jerseys. TC'sWorldOfWonders.com. Check them out to grab your jerseys, especially as you start getting ready here. Baseball season's not that far away, man. So I was starting to get I got my White Sox shirt on today. I'm starting to slowly start bringing out my baseball stuff right now as football season is one more week until, Chris. Now I'm starting to get all the baseball stuff out, man. It feels good to have
I,
it back.
I'm just a pure football guy, so you know what I'm saying. You won't see a lot of baseball stuff creeping out the closet anytime soon for me.
We're gonna change that,
It,
man.
it, well, we'll see. We'll see if you see a white with a pinstripe pop up out of nowhere, then hey, somebody did something that a lot of people deemed impossible with me because I could talk football with people 24/7, 374.
So all you guys in the chat, you guys just heard him say that. All you guys in the chat, by May or June, we're gonna have Chris as a diehard baseball fan. That's our goal. We got a job to do here, man. We're gonna make him a baseball fan. Got some
Okay.
work to do though. You guys can watch and like and subscribe our YouTube channel, YouTube page. We got more shows coming up. Check out our past shows too. I cannot wait. Tomorrow I'm going to be getting caught up on everybody's shows over the last couple of days. We have a lot of content that we're putting out, especially here as breaking news happens with the Bears, with the coaching search and everything else going on. And we can't thank you guys enough for being part of that as well. So, Chris, good to see you again tonight, man. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll hopefully be able to do it again next week, man. We'll be talking Bears, everything Chicago Bears.
Oh, I'll be able to do it again next week. It just family went through some stuff, so I had to do what you have to take care of the family first. Outside of that, it's gonna be football, 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 football until next season for me.
Family always first, man, and it's good to see you back here, brother. So have a great weekend, and to everybody else in the chat room too. Thank you guys so much for watching tonight, Monsters at the Madhouse, and we will talk.